One of the best Dead Space games has been lost to time, and I'm willing to bet you probably never got to play it. Welcome in, everybody. Go ahead, take a seat, get comfy, maybe grab a snack. It's true, I'm workshopping the backwards hat. I thought it was time to spice things up a little bit, maybe appeal to a younger generation. How are all my Gen Alphas doing? You feeling Sigma today? Did you guys catch that last episode of Beast Games? Dude, that part when they threw that lady into the pit of needles was so sick. Mr. Beast.
Fuck poor people.
Also, I had norovirus last week, so I've never been more thankful for modern medicine in my entire life. Yo, what's good? Check out the drip. The fever left me a giant cold sore as a cool little souvenir, so that's not exactly easy on the eyes. But you know what they say? Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Only beekeepers can say you're beautiful. Depending how much red 40's flowing through your system right now, mobile gaming might take on a couple different forms. If you're older like me, it might conjure up memories of like Fruit Ninja, Cut the Rope, or Tiny Wings? Any of you guys remember Tiny Wings? That game is awesome. Unfortunately, mobile gaming has taken on a bit of a different identity as of late. And it's not good. It's not good.
It's called Last War. It's going viral because the developers made a real game based off the fake game in the ads.
And I think we can all use a nice little palate cleanser heading into the new year. So I wanted to take a look back at one of my favorite games growing up, and probably one that you guys haven't played before, and that's Dead Space Mobile. In 2011, Iron Monkey Studios developed a Dead Space spin-off game for iOS and Android devices. Early concepts for the game were for an on-rails shooter, but the absolute chads at the production team decided they wanted to recreate the atmosphere and the gameplay of the main series and try and fit it onto the technical confines of your iPod Touch. There were plenty of returning Dead Space staff, so this was by all means a legitimate entry into the series, with an original story that ties into the console games and captures that unique feel that the games have. I remember being absolutely terrified of this game as a kid. Now that being said, I was kind of like a skittish kid, like a lot of things made me scared. I remember being really, really scared of the buzzer noise on the Operation board game, which I think is justified. Right? You're ripping shit out of a giant hole in a big naked dude. I think that's okay to be scared of that, right? But I'm curious to see if the game is as scary or even as good as I remember it being. So let's go ahead and take a look. So we've run into a bit of a problem here. The game was removed from the App Store in 2016. I did find some APK files online, but I have an iPhone, so that doesn't really help me with that. So I think my only option really is to download an Android emulator on my PC and run an APK on that. So I downloaded Nox as my emulator and the APK file, along with what I'm sure is the equivalent of a virus multivitamin. I'm sure I got a good variety of viruses on my PC now, but joke's on them, I don't have any money. I do have some student loans, so maybe they could take those. That'd be kind of cool. After loading up the game file, it launched fine and everything seemed to be running. I decided to opt for the easy difficulty, because I know porting touchscreen controls to keyboard and mouse is going to be a nightmare. And I don't think I've ever been more right about something in my entire life. The very second I loaded into the game, I knew it was going to be an issue. Oh, shit. So the way you control everything is by dragging your finger around. You move by dragging around on the left side and do the same on the other side to aim. Now, this is a problem on PC because your mouse is your finger. So in order to move, you have to click and drag around. Luckily, Nox lets you map some controls to the keyboard, so I was able to map the movement to WASD like a normal game. But looking around and moving the camera, I had to click and drag around on the screen, which was pretty horrible. And pretty much everything you do in the game is from tapping on the right side of the screen, so I ended up shooting randomly a bunch and aiming when I didn't want to, just doing all kinds of wacky stuff. But it was kind of playable after spending like 20 minutes trying to map out different controls, so we're just gonna roll with it. The developers had a couple easy outs when it came to making this game. They could have just ported the first Dead Space game and adapted that to mobile controls, or they could have just made a short throwaway story that didn't tie in with any of the main games, with the story only serving to move the players between areas. Instead of taking the easy way out, they decided to make an original story that ties in with Dead Space 2. Like DS2, the game takes place on the Sprawl, this time following Carrie Norton, codenamed Vandal, who is sent on a secret mission by the Church of Unitology. As a new inductee of the Church, Vandal doesn't second guess the purpose of the mission, as you're sent out to destroy a series of power boxes, effectively cutting off communications to the rest of the station. Eventually realizing she was just a pawn in the Church's plan to release a necromorph outbreak onto the station, and with countless lives in danger, Vandal's push to right her wrongs and make the Church pay for what they've done. Guiding her through the missions is Tyler Radikov, the same person who instructed her to cut off the power in the first place. But now he's actually here to help. That first time, like 10 minutes ago, they were just tricking him too. He's the victim here, can't you see that?
Oh, I swear, I didn't know what they were doing. I only just found out myself. I've been trying to reach you.
So again, we follow blindly what he tells us to do, and we open up the doors to the public sector of the station. You know, the only door is separating the public sector from the necromorphs. I mean, you gotta realize it's a horrible idea, right? Like, you've been trying to avoid this the entire game. Then Tyler comes in, and all he's gotta say is, hey, trust me on this. And Vandal's like, all right.
First thing you have to do is open the door to the public sector. It's the quickest way. Just take out the door security.
All right, I get it. Here goes.
You've been trying to avoid letting them in here the entire time. And he already tricked you once. It's like she flicked on Man Ray's orb of confusion. Just fucking started drooling everywhere. Started listening to everything Tyler said. So you get convinced to open up the public sector and set the stage for Dead Space 2. Now when it comes to porting the games over to mobile, the big questions become, how does it control? And were they able to really replicate the true Dead Space experience? The gameplay mechanics stay largely the same from the first game. All of the iconic weapons are here. You got the plasma cutter, the Ripper, the line gun, they're all here, including a full upgrade tree for each weapon and for your suit. I will say the game seems to be a little bit short to justify such a big tree. It's gonna be hard to fill out any of these weapons before the game ends, which could be seen as a positive as well, because it gives the players an incentive to search every box, every corner for power nodes and credits, which rewards players for taking the time to explore, while at the same time avoiding punishing players who don't. Ammo is still scarce, as you would come to expect from a Dead Space game, forcing the player to make every shot count or suffer running out of ammo and becoming defenseless. And I think this is something that Dead Space as a whole does extremely well. When you're talking about the genre of kind of horror shooters, I think about Dead Space and I think about The Last of Us. Both of the games do a really good job at using ammo scarcity to build tension, especially on the higher difficulties when ammo is really scarce. It forces the player to make those split-second decisions on whether firing their gun is actually going to be worth it. And if you do decide to shoot, there's a ton of extra pressure because you better make your shots count because you don't know the next time you're going to find more ammo. And I think it really lends a lot to the experience. So you can see all the mechanics you would come to expect from the series are present here. And the way it was adapted to touchscreen is really nothing short of impressive. To move around and aim, you slide around on the left and right sides of the screen. There aren't any annoying virtual joysticks or buttons. You can slide anywhere on the screen, making it so much easier to control and keeps the screen clear of extra clutter. All the controls are kept simple by using just single taps. Just tap the stasis module on Vandal's back to use stasis, or tap the right side of the screen to aim, and tap it again to shoot. It's all super intuitive and they make great use of all the smartphone features. To change shooting modes, you simply rotate your device to the left or right, and to gravity jump, you just shake your device, which works fine on mobile devices, but trying to emulate these movements on PC was not great. I actually couldn't get past the zero gravity parts on the emulator because they don't have anything to map like shaking the device. So I got stuck a little over halfway through the game and I wasn't able to progress past it. I just wish I was able to play it again on a mobile device because I remember it being the very first shooter I played on iOS that didn't feel clunky, which I think is a huge compliment. Now, when it comes to presentation, the game doesn't actually have as much in common with DS2 as it does the original. The ship design is very reminiscent of the first game with its tight corridors and gray color palette. There are a lot of design choices like this that you can tell were made to make the game easier to run on an iPod Touch. Let's take the enemy spawns for example. The game will funnel you into a room that's clearly made to have a fighting section in it, and that room will lock down, forcing you to take on a couple waves of enemies before leaving. And you very rarely run into enemies outside of these quarantine rooms or the tight corridors. And I'll admit, just moving from lockdown room to lockdown room and fighting waves of enemies in each one, it did get a little bit boring after a while. But we have to remember, this is a mobile game, right? It's intended to be played in short spurts. Each mission only lasts between 15 to 20 minutes, which is the perfect length to give you that Dead Space experience on the go. And there's nowhere that experience stands out better than with the atmosphere. The original Dead Space composer, Jason Graves, reprised his role in the development of this game as well, and it really shows. I'm a firm believer that a horror game is only as good as its sound design, and they did a fantastic job here. And although you don't get to see much outside of the tight corridors and quarantine zones, there's no shortage of scares. Vandal experiences hallucinations throughout the game, starting small and escalating throughout the story, flashing suddenly to extremely well done, horrific sequences. You can feel Vandal's mind slipping as the story progresses, and it forces the player to wrestle with the possibility of each encounter being just a hallucination instead. You're never really quite sure if what you see is happening is actually happening or if it's all just inside your head. One minute you're in a seemingly safe room until you're suddenly transported into a bloodied room fighting for your life. It keeps the game interesting and keeps the players on their toes. It never lets you fully relax, no matter how safe an area seems. Yeah, that about does it for Dead Space Mobile. One of the prime examples of a console port to mobile done perfectly. If you have an Android device and you're a Dead Space fan, I would definitely recommend checking it out. Otherwise, if you're going to have to emulate it on the PC, probably not even worth playing. Just watch a little playthrough on YouTube. Or better yet, watch this video over again and then send it to 300 of your friends. If you do that, I will give you a kiss on the forehead. If you enjoyed this little walk down memory lane with me and you think I earned your subscription, I would love you so much if you hit that subscribe button and checked out some of my other videos, because I think you'd probably enjoy those as well. I'm gonna go get a perm now so I can go fit in with Gen Alpha and capture more of that younger demographic. All right, see you guys.